Welcome back to the Social Worker Podcast, where we talk real stories, real impact, and real change in the world of social work. I'm your host, Deandra Thomas, and today we have a very special guest, someone whose story embodies resilience, purpose, and community. Joining me today is Kenisha, a former foster youth who aged out of care, and instead of letting that define her, she's now using her voice to give back as a social worker, author, and community activist. She's the founder of Kenisha Kith and Kenisha's Kithmas, a powerful holiday event created to bring joy and hope to underprivileged youth during the holiday season. Thank you for joining us on the Social Worker Podcast. Tell us a little bit about who you are, and before we even get into your experience with foster care, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Thank you for having me. My name is Kenisha Anthony, and I am a Miami native, born and raised. I went to Miami Central. I love the beautiful city of Miami, but I'm also ready to experience new things out of state. And I'm just very adventurous. I love to go outside, but I also love to be inside. But I love to eat, I love to shop, and I love to travel.
So a big part of who you are, or one of the biggest things that I wanted to do with the podcast, was to mix real life experiences with the work, because we don't always get to see, or because social work is like one of those HIPAA compliant fields, we don't often get to see what goes on behind the scenes. But with you, your story is so powerful because you are a person who has had a direct experience with the foster care system. So tell us a little bit about that and what that experience was like growing up for you.
My family came into contact with the Department of Children and Families when I was 4 years old due to my parents' addiction to drugs, abandonment, the system. My father never was in my life, so the abandonment came from there. But both my mother and my father both were addicted to drugs, and the system deemed them. Wait, I said it part. The system, I not just, how you have a word blank. The system, both my mother and father suffered from drug addictions. And due to their drug addictions, they were not great parents to me. So the system deemed them unfit to care for me and removed me from their care. I do have 2 siblings. So me, my sister, and my brother was removed from the care of my mother. And because my father was never in my life, I was removed from his care as well, which would just be like legal custody of him. He didn't have custody of me. And growing up, I lived in licensed placements, relative placements, non-relative placements. And through all of those experiences, I feel like I raised myself. Even though people was in my life and people may feel like, I stepped up and I wanted to care for her. But I think for me, it's like, what did people really teach me? Like, what did you really prepare me for to be? How did you really prepare me to be an adult, a thriving adult? Like, was you really that support system that I needed to be an adult, ready to, step into the world? But so I didn't have the best experience. And I'm one of those stories that, if you ever heard the saying, someone falls through the cracks. Mm-hmm. So I was one of those children who fell through the cracks for whatever reason. But when I was in the 10th grade, I realized that, it came to light that I didn't have a legal guardian. And I was trying to register for high school. And the person the adult that I was with at the time was unable to register me, reaching out to people who I have lived with in the past. The schools wasn't accepting the paperwork that they had. And it was like, this young child don't have a legal guardian. So I got back in contact with the Department of Children and Families. And then they had to do an investigation. The caregiver who had custody of me in 1990... And this is if I'm in high school, we are in the 2000s. Mm-hmm. So who had custody of me in the 1990s was charged with abandonment. And then I was placed into a non-relative placement. Going through the system and how, like I said, this is in the 2000s. So the system, the laws and policies have changed today. But those everyday struggles of when you live in a non-relative placement, everybody think that everybody who lives in every child comes with a check, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the notion. And it wasn't that at the time, that wasn't true. So I lived within a non-relative, non-licensed placement, and you don't qualify for money if you're not related to the child at the time. And that was a big stressor on my placement. So that didn't end well. And at this time I'm 16. So my case plan goal was APLA. So now we're looking for a permanent living arrangement. And because the finances are putting a stress on this placement, it turned out not to be long term. Once I aged out of the system, they told me it was nothing else that they can do. So I didn't get independent living. The one resource that was available to me was the tuition exemption. So I took full advantage of the tuition exemption. I went to college. I have a bachelor's in social work, a master's in public administration. And my livelihood was, dependent on philanthropists in the community that wanted to give back, that understand that there are young children growing up who need support, who need resources. And that was, how I really got my start into the world.
One of the things, I had somebody who, she had 2 cases. She was one of my previous guests on a podcast. She closed out a case in adoption and in permanent guardianship. And even with her situation, it was one of those things that like her and I built a relationship through social media based off of things she would share in her close friends about her having an experience with the system. So it was conversations we would have where I would be like, it's important to follow those court orders. And just going back to what you were stating about you being one of the children who fell through the system, because we don't know the full story, but you stated that you had the person was charged with abandonment because you were basically in the custody of somebody who really didn't have custody of you, where there are, and that's very common, like even from working in Miami, working in Tallahassee, people don't follow the court order. And it's like, as this, I don't know the whole notion behind why policies are the way they are, but the system is designed to be like least intrusive when deemed necessary. So it's like, it's not common to follow a case up until it closes. Well, after it closes, it's once case closure or once permanency has been achieved, we're out of your life. We want you to go live your life. We're going to let you guys live your life as a family and do what's best as a family. Where then there's times where you end up falling through the cracks because they're like, okay, go live with your aunt, go live with a cousin. And now it's the child who's suffering. Like a lot of things you were robbed from because family members who took on or who stated that they would take on that responsibility of being that long-term caregiver for you, somewhere along the line change their mind. So you said that you didn't qualify for independent living, but one of the things you did qualify for was the tuition exemption. Because there's a lot of people who don't take advantage of that tuition exemption piece. What was that? What was the motive behind you really pursuing that and taking that serious?
So when I came back in contact with the system, I was able to re-enroll into high school. And for me, I always knew I was smart. And I knew that I had the ability to graduate high school. So like I didn't want to get a GED. At the time, the caregiver that I was living with, she would always say, like, when you turn 18, nobody's going to care about you. And for me as a teenager, I'm thinking to myself like, well, nobody don't care about me now. So what does it really mean when I turn 18? And it was also a notion of when you truly think about what does that mean when someone tell you that when you turn 18, nobody's going to care about you. I think as I reflect on that as an adult, you were already telling me that you don't care about me, because why do I have to turn 18 for you not to care about me? So as I'm graduating high school, I have this energy in me that's saying like, I'm going to graduate high school. Because I didn't have a guardian when I was in the 10th grade, I had to repeat the 10th grade once I went back to school because I didn't finish it before. And there was something going on in that time too. But as I was going through the graduation process, I was going to day school, night school, virtual school, because I needed to catch up on my credits, because I am a person who take accountability for the things that I also did, like skip class. I was a teenager, skipping class, failing classes. So I did have to do catch up. And I did everything that I was supposed to do my senior year. And I didn't want to stay in school till I was 20 years old. So I graduated high school when I was 19. And in the back of my head, it was like, Kenisha, what are you going to do? What options do you have on the table? So I was like, well, you got this tuition exemption, so you're going to college. Mm-hmm. And for me to graduate high school, I filled out college applications to FIU because I was getting extra credit in my high school courses to be able to pass. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to fill out these applications. I don't care if I get denied. I needed it for high school. I needed that extra credit for my high school classes. So yes, the universities all sent me denial letters, but like I said, I needed it to graduate high school. So it didn't matter. But I went to Miami-Dade College. And I'm going to tell you, when I got my acceptance letter from Miami-Dade College, just to see that I was accepted, it gave me this feeling that was it was a very empowering feeling, like, oh, Kenisha, you could do this. Like, you have an opportunity. And I struggled my first year in college because you don't know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You really don't have anyone to ask. It's just like this trial and error. But once I got past that and, I figured it out, my second year, listen, I was a scholar and I was making straight A's when I was in college. I was in JROTC when I was in college. Well, it'll be ROTC at that time. And just really figuring myself out, figuring out what I wanted to do, applying for scholarships, getting accepted, being awarded scholarships. So once I did all of that, and once you have those experiences, it really changes the trajectory of your life, because it shows you what you're capable of. It shows you what's out there in the world, what you have access to. And for me, it was just like, I like to use this saying, take the stairs. Like, don't worry about don't worry about the outcome. Just take the stairs, take it one step at a time. And I live my life like that. And even in my life today, I use it as like a rinse and repeat of how I accomplish my goals today.
So what made you choose social work? You could have went into any field. Some people, especially with their experience with the system, may have said, this ain't for me. I didn't have the best experience in the system, so I don't want to trauma bond with it. I want to distance myself from that. What was your drive to keep you into or make you want to pursue the social work degree?
So it's a very interesting experience. When I initially decided that I was going into social work, it was my second semester in college at Miami-Dade. I didn't know that I had to turn in a tuition exemption every month, every semester. So wait a minute. I didn't know that I had to turn in the tuition waiver every semester. So I was using my my refund from FAFSA to survive throughout the semester. So that was my money.
That's a fun fact. Didn't know that either.
Right. So once you submit the tuition exemption, it waives your tuition, and then you get your full refund back from FAFSA. But the second semester, I didn't know that I had to turn this paper in the next semester. So when I got my refund check, it was $900. And I was like, where's my money? So I go, and how the FAFSA line is at the beginning of the semester. So I'm standing in this long line, waiting every single day to get up there to talk to somebody to find out about my money. And when I get to the front, they say, you didn't turn in your tuition waiver. And I'm like, yeah, but my status of being a ward of the state never changes. And this is not even a new school year. This is the same school year. So why do I have to turn this paper in every semester? So I was like so frustrated with that experience. And I was just like, nope, nobody didn't tell me anything. My case, although I didn't qualify for independent living, I still had access to the independent living coordinator, because that's the person who have to give you the tuition exemption. So I was like, why you didn't tell me this? So it was just like a very frustrating experience. And even just with my experience aging out of the system and nobody telling you things, people giving you mixed information, you feeling like, okay, I'm going to qualify. Okay, your caseworker said, I'm going to go talk to my supervisor about it. I'm going to see what they're going to say. So it's like they give you this false hope, but they never really give you the real information. And then it's like your life is just left in a limbo. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to change my major to social work. I'm going to become an advocate. I got on Google. I found this organization called Florida Youth Shine, and I became an advocate. And I was a part of going to Tallahassee to advocate, to tell my story to legislators and my experience to legislators that changed a lot of the policies that are in place today. So like today, youth do not have to turn in their tuition exemption every semester. They have liaisons in the colleges now that fully understands the foster care system to help students navigate through the post-secondary education experience and the foster care experience, because people in the world, they just don't know, and like people just don't understand those policies, and it really affects a person's personal life. So I became a social worker, and then I went on this journey, and I was this advocate, and I traveled all around the world from the West Coast to the East Coast. I've been to Washington, I've been to the White House, I've been to Portland, Oregon, been all over the world, drafting policies, critiquing policies, sharing my experience and best practices. Once I graduated college, I went to Florida State University. Once I graduated college, I came back to Miami, and then I started case management. Now, my experience between being an advocate and case management, from Tallahassee to Miami and starting my career in social work, I just felt that I was gonna make the biggest difference ever. Like, Kenisha, you advocated for these laws, you know the resources. You're gonna become a social worker, and you're just gonna skyrocket. Like, you're gonna help everybody. Anybody who, and it's not even, I did have a good experience as a case manager, and I do like to think that I did help my families, and I definitely went above and beyond for the system to help my family, not my family, for the system to help the families that I served. And I got to this place where I did feel like I started to question, why did I become a social worker? I felt like, was this a trauma bond? Was this a trauma response? Am I responding to my trauma? Like, why do I stay in this world? And I just had a lot of thoughts really centered around it, because it's like the saying, like personal and professional, right? People always say, oh, people became a social worker, you just here for the money. But then we know that you do get paid, but you don't get paid. Like, it's not a for-profit business. Like, it's not billions of dollars that you get paid. But once you become a social worker and then people start saying that to you, you're like, oh my God, that is not why I'm here. Like, I will help you. So I just started to think about it in that aspect, and just think about, I just feel like I'm in a very privileged position though, where I can pivot when I want. And I feel like that's where I'm at in my life now. But that was definitely how I got started in social work. It was that advocate burning inside of me and wanting to help. And once I became a social worker, I felt like, from an advocate to a social worker, I felt that what I learned as an advocate wasn't translating to me in the social work profession. So it's a lot that you really have to process, and it's a lot that you really have to reflect on in your own brain, like the conversations that you have to have with yourself to understand the why this may not be happening, and just a lot of things that I saw. But I think that it developed me more into the social worker that I want to be, and who I became along the years in my profession.
So you are now an adult, right?
Yeah.
But there are still so many youth who have, or who's going through a process that you had went through. So, I just want, before we transition into where Kenisha, because we're speaking about where Kenisha was, where Kenisha has been. So before we transition into the things that you're doing now, I want you to leave foster youth, people who are experiencing or are having an experience with the system. I want you to leave them with some words of hope, encouragement, or just some gems of knowledge that you have experienced and witnessed along this process.
Like that's the part that I'm saying, like where I'm at right now, it's about really understanding my community and understanding their minds and what they think and how they respond to things. But people are crazy.
So okay, let me re-ask the question then, right? So there's a lot of people, or there's a lot of children who, or teenagers, let's not even say children, let's get to the teenagers, right, who are at the brink of aging out, and they're so, life's about to hit them, right? Especially when you have grown up in the foster care system. Some people turn 18 and it's just like a regular day for them. They have their birthday celebration, but nothing really changes. Versus now you're in foster care, you hit 18 and the dependency system closes, boom, the dependency process closes, you transition into independent living. And now you have your first taste of what adulthood looks like without that family or that network. So what advice would you leave to them who's about to enter adulthood?
The advice that I would give to teenagers who are approaching 18 years of age is to utilize resources first and foremost. The resources are available for you. They are deemed for you. Utilize them. Start building your network now. Even if you're 16, 15, 17, start building your network now. Start building that nest, whether that is your case manager, your IL specialist, a mentor. Start building your nest so when you do turn 18, you have that you have that person. Start thinking about who are those people going to be for you, and utilize those resources. Go to school and get a job, and please save your money. I know we always think that we're going to turn 18 and I'm going to go just buy a car and it's nothing wrong with catching the bus for a while to save money. Mm-hmm. There is nothing wrong with catching the bus. You don't even have to Uber everywhere. Sometimes you have to make those sacrifices to get up an hour early to get to work. It's a whole world. Life is a process, and I understand. And you have EFC until you turn 21, and if you go to college, you have PES until you turn 23. I've seen so many times where youth play with life when they turn 22, and then when their 23rd birthday come and that check is gone, a month before, they'll come reaching out to everybody for help. And it's like you have to, one of the hard realities that I had to learn in this journey was that I feel like the moment I was removed from my family was the moment I really became an adult. And I think that you have that because you are actually a child in reality, and people are responsible for you in some capacity, but people will just do so much. They don't really go above and beyond, but they'll just do so much. And this experience is different from everybody, right? You can meet somebody who can be your forever family. They could, I don't think nobody could ever replace your parents, but they could be close to it. Mm-hmm. And really, and really pour into you. But the quicker that you realize that I'm all I have and I have to do this for myself, I think the better off that a person would be. And it's not, trauma does a lot to the brain. It does a lot to our experiences. Sometimes we could thrive in our victimhood. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, you just don't. It's a hard thing to really. It's a hard experience to truly accept. That it's something that you don't want to accept, because everybody has a mom, everybody has a dad, right? Like that's the norm. So when you don't have that, what does that even mean for you when you don't have that? Mm-hmm. So, the quicker we bite that bullet and really create a life for ourselves, when you start envisioning the life that you want for yourself, and what do you have to do every day when you wake up to live that life, I think you'll be all right. I'm not going to say that it's easy. I'm not going to say that it's not hard. I'm not going to say some days you're not going to still cry. I'm not saying some days you're not going to think about it. Holiday times will still be hard. It's a journey, and it's a process within itself, and you truly have to learn coping mechanisms to deal with it, because it's something that I really feel like you have to deal with for the rest of your life.
And it's like, you said so much, and it's a lot to unpack, right? And we have an hour. But the one of the key things is, and this is what I had to learn as a social worker, right? You know, we go through school, we learn what we learn in a classroom. I did that undergrad, got into my master's level program, and I learned that one of the key things was you have to meet people where they are. You cannot deal with every family. There's like no one size method or one size fit all type of thing that you do in this profession. And working in the child welfare system, and then sitting with a person who is trying to recover from substance use, I learned that everybody's path is different. The good thing about social work, or even doing therapy, like, it's not a one size method that fits all. So I had the ability with my as a case manager, I connected more with my teams. And I think I really, out of all of the cases, like, I had a mixed caseload. I had babies, I had teenagers, but I always just felt more drawn to my teenagers. Did I have a lot of them on my caseload? No. I felt like more seasoned people had the teenagers, because, you know, there's a lot of other factors that come along with having teenagers on your caseload. But that reality that you were talking about, the truth of the matter is we don't get time back. So that time clock starts ticking, and it's like, your reality is your reality. And I used to tell some of the teenagers that I worked with was, don't think about all of the negatives. We know the negatives. That's on paper. But what the future has, or what you have, is the ability to rewrite what's not on paper. You have so many years ahead of you than that's behind you. So we know what happened is unfortunate, but one thing that we all are given is time. And we all have an end date, right? Like you said, that 23 years old where the light bulb goes off. And sadly, you know, when you have that nest, you have the ability to make more mistakes, versus when all you have is yourself. It's in your hands. Whatever you do is in your hands.
You know, the interesting thing about this experience, right? When I say build your nest will be your IO specialist, because that will be the person that you could reach out to, right? If you have a mentor, your mentor could reach out to you. But like I was saying, you know, nobody never replaces your parents. And those relationships are not, I don't want to say it this way, but it's like those relationships also have a time limit on them as well. So you have to understand that you're here for a good time, not a long time, when you have these relationships. And some of these relationships can turn into long-term, lifelong relationships, but majority of the time that just really may not be your reality, where this is going to turn into something that is long-term. So something, when I do work with young people and I talk to young people, even for myself, because I curated my life and I understand that, and I had to separate my personal life from work. So I go to work to help people. In my personal life, I'm living my life in my personal life. And that's one of those harsh realities that come with a helping profession, right? Where you will think that people don't have boundaries and you can't separate the two, and you always have to be available for someone who you're going to work to help. Unfortunately, it's just the reality. I know it sounds crazy, right? But it's just the reality of it. And when I'm working with people, I try to tell them, you know, we can talk. Like, I can come to work, we could talk. We could talk about, I can help guide your thoughts to, what do you like to do? How can we get you to see that you can do these things? Because when I go home, I'm going home and you're not coming with me.
You have to be able to teach them to not become codependent
on me, right? You have to create a life for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
How do I help you create a life for yourself? And that's just teenagers, right? So when it comes to parents and working with parents, and I know that even though I wasn't supposed to be talking about this on this podcast, but like, you know, I'm far removed from the front line today. In my professional career, I'm not on the front line anymore. But when I was, to parents, it's like we really have to. I realized that, you know, we work with people who, this is the most ugliest side of a person that people don't like to share, but it's your behaviors that brought you into the system, and this is even probably taboo to say, right? So you have people in the world who are like advocates, the system needs to be reformed, systemic issues, all of those things do exist. But today, I would not believe that I sit next to one of my coworkers who deliberately come to work and say, I'm going to ruin this family's life. And if your case is assigned to the role that I serve in, our goal is to connect you to resources. Our goal is to get your children to permanency, even if that means returning them back to you as a parent, a family member, a coach, a mentor, your pastor, whoever that person may be. But Kenisha speaking to her community, we have to really be honest with ourselves about what behavior do I have that is causing this system to be in my life, that is truly causing harm to my children and their livelihood and their well-being. That's a reality that we really, it's not all, look, I know it's not always the system.
It's not always, and that's why I say, like, you know, I have a friend, she's like one of my best friends that I met through social work, right? And we have two different approaches. She was like, straight to the point. There's no beating around the bush. She's going to hold you accountable. And I used to be on the phone with her and I'm like, why are you talking to them like that? And she was like, because this is what they need. So it clicked for me going through the process of my master's that you got to meet these people where they're at. You can't be all, oh, yes, no, enabling them. They've been enabled their whole life. You as a professional, you have to be able to set those boundaries, hold them accountable, because if you don't as a professional, nobody else will. If they did, they wouldn't be here today. So that was one of, you know, the hard realities that I learned, and it clicked with me. And I think that's probably why I'm still in child welfare, because it's just so like, I'm not a doctor, right? I'm not a medical professional to where I have to go by the book. No, social work gives me that ability to be creative and meet my families or that child where they're at, right? So we're going to wrap up that segment of, you know, it's just so hard when you're in child welfare. It's just so hard not to touch on it. But, you know, you have a book. I brought two of them. You know, I'm going to give one away in my raffle. So what I'll do is just have it edited in at the end so they can see the book. But tell us about your book and what experience birthed that for you. Tell them the name since we don't have a book to show.
I wrote a memoir. The title of it is labeled Ward of the State. And what birthed the book was that I always wanted to share my story, but what is that young boy name on Netflix? It was a story, but
I don't even watch TV.
At the end of it, he dies, right? And I do not like to watch stories, movies that just ends bad.
Me either.
So I always wanted to write a book, and I always wanted to, I always wanted to share my story and just becoming that advocate, writing my scholarship essays. And going through this experience, you think a lot that nobody in the world knows what you're going through. You seem so isolated. You just feel like nobody understands. And I was like, you know what? At that point in my life, I was 27 years old. I was 2 years into therapy, and I was like, I feel like I've reached a point where I'm ready I know how to end this story. I know how to end this book that doesn't just leave a person on a cliffhanger. Like I'm saying, like the documentary that it was, the young boy, he just died, and it's like you just walk away and he's dead, and it's like, what do I do with that? So at that point in my life, I was like, okay, I got the ending. Like I got it. So I started with my scholarship essays, and then I just started editing my scholarship essays, and then I started writing, and then what birthed this book was voices. I feel like I like to describe the foster care system as an onion, right? The more you get into it and you start peeling back those layers, the more you learn. But as a professional, what I learned is that I do know people on paper, right? And people knew me on paper. I requested my file, I read my file, and I'm like, this people don't know me at all. So I like to describe my book as the interplay of the life of a Black girl, foster care, and social justice. And when people talk about my book, they like, oh, this is a book about foster care. No, it's not. It's a book about my life, and foster care just happened to be an experience in my life. So it's about what does a person's life look like with the system that has its own mission, right? So the mission of the foster care system is we're going to remove this child from danger, and then we're going to prevent this child from experiencing further trauma. But that's not the case. And what happens when a system of people don't really know a person, and like you say, you just going by the book? But it's like every single day that I'm waking up, I have my own thoughts, I have my own mind, I have my own likes, I have my own dislikes. So what am I feeling when this system is saying, okay, do this service or have this resource, or you don't get no access to any of these things? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? And as a social worker, what do you do with that? Do you as a social worker who's in someone's life, do you think about these things? No, you don't really know this person. You're just kind of following a roadmap of what it is that you say that you need. But I feel like that's more so on the parent side, right? What happens to this kid who's enduring this? So as I go through the book, I'm shedding light from that perspective, like my day-to-day life. And every 25 days that I see my social worker, right, is what does my day-to-day life look like? What are my wants? What are the things that I like? What is my culture? How does culture mix with this system? Does this system respect culture? We have this thing, right, where we get Jordans every 2 weeks. Does this system respect that this is what I want? No. But what is the result of that? Those are things that we don't think about. And it's I understand, it's like, oh, they say foster care is $1 billion business. You see 1,000 nonprofits around the world. Everybody have their Christmas campaigns, their Thanksgiving campaigns, and they're saying we're gonna feed these many people. And kudos to everybody who do the things that they do. And it's been going on for how long, right? But when you get older and you realize and you learn these things and you see these things, right? And you feel like as a kid, well, I didn't get any of this. Where was these people when I needed these things? So yes, there are people who are going to receive resources, but then there's this pocket of people who will never see any of these resources and feel like nobody in the world ever cared about them. And I feel like with my book, that was one of the voices that I wanted to express, and I want everyone who comes in contact with this book, this is what I want them to understand. Then I reflect on my experience as a social worker, as a Black woman who's a social worker navigating a system, navigating my communities. What is my experience like doing this? What challenges am I facing with the system to help families? Where's the disconnect? How do we reflect on that? Even in that portion of my life, I realized that the foster care system is not like a hospital. You could walk in the hospital, see a doctor, get a prescription. That's not the foster care system. The foster care system is an overseer, right? And we are knowledgeable of the resources that are in our communities. And if our families knew that when they have a problem, how to go access that resource, they don't need us. And that was something that you have to learn. So given that perspective and, just the social justice aspect of it, where when you do go through something, what can you do about it? What's in your power to change the trajectory for those that come behind you, for those that have to experience it? So like I said, I didn't get the tuition exemption when I turned 18 because I was in a non-relative, non-licensed placement. And you'll be like, you was in the system, so why does any of that matter? But now, going to Tallahassee to tell my story and my experience, Non-relatives now are included in the relative caregiver funds. Now you receive money. Now they have level 1 licensing for people who want permanent guardianship to give them that extra support, in policy. So empowering people and educating people to let them know that these are things that you can do to change the trajectory of our society, that changes the way how things operate. And just becoming that thriving adult. How did I navigate college? How did I navigate starting my career? What does that look like moving into my first apartment? My interactions with my mentors. What resources did I rely on? Just that real raw experience. And that is what Label Water the State is all about.
I mean, that's a lot. I need to, when I go on my trip, I'm going to start. I said, I'm getting rid of this blue light and this phone at night. I'm going to start getting into books. And your book was one of I didn't just order it. Oh, because she's coming on a podcast. I was actually in the season of my life where I'm like, okay, phones and scrolling after being in front of a computer all day is not conducive for me. So I wanted to go ahead and start getting more into books. So that's what pushed me into purchasing your book. So how has writing been like a healing piece for you?
I had to writing has been, for me, it has always been expressive for me. I learned to write and read when I was in the 3rd grade. My 3rd grade teacher, Miss Gauthier, that was something that she highlighted very much in our curriculum in the 3rd grade. Like, I started reading Harry Potter books, and what was that platform called? It wasn't Scholastic. It was Accelerated Reader, where you read the books and you take the test and you get points. And I became very competitive when it came to literacy. And I wanted the trophy. So writing has always been something that I knew that I loved to do since I was a young girl. But going through the foster care system, living with other people, and writing was, even though I knew it was something that I like to do, it was something that I refrained myself from doing, because you'll live with people and they'll go read your journal, and that just opened up a whole nother can of worms. So I started to bottle a lot of things in and not write. But once I got to college and I started writing scholarships and I started talking about my experience again, and then I started getting rewarded for it, it was, I remembered that this was therapeutic to me. So like, journaling is very important to me. And I do believe that when you write everything down, some people probably don't believe in manifestation, but you manifest those things. And it's just like a roadmap to remind yourself, like, this is what I want to do. This is what my heart desires. And this is what, my thoughts are. And it's like putting something back into the universe to guide you to achieve what you want.
That accelerated reader piece, and I know it's just somewhat off topic, but it is so key, because the foundation is everything. Like, I literally took my child out of a school because they didn't have iReady, and I'm like, you know what? I need iReady, because accelerated reader was something that helped me. And like you said, writing and reading, it is a healing tool. Like, there's sometimes I'll be praying and I'll be like, God, I prayed about this already, and I'll go down and write. And then I'll start writing and just keep writing. And the next thing you know, it's like 5 pages long, because of, as you write, it's just an expression. It's expressive. And as you're writing, not only are you writing, but thoughts are just coming to your mind. And it's like, because we had that foundation, or the system has taught us that, the school system has taught us that reading is very fundamental. It's like, these are things that even in our adulthood that we continue to take with us. So I know it was off topic, but it was just one of those things where it's like, as parents, we may feel as if, reading is okay. They tell you to read, but what's the benefits of it? But as an adult, those are some things that we take into our adulthood with us that is very expressive for us. And like you said, foster care, like, I'm just a big journaler. I love journaling, and something that I always used to try to leave my teenagers with was a journal. Like, I will go out my way to go and get a journal for them to be able to write and reflect, because like you said, when you check out at night, their reality stays the same. We do those home visits every 25 days, but how much is that child really telling you within those 20 minutes that you're there? So I used to tell them, like, hey, when I leave, if there was a question that you forgot to ask me, write it down. We'll revisit it the next time I come. Or if you feel overwhelmed, or if you feel like you don't have anybody to speak to, write it down, because the truth of the matter is, sometimes even as a foster parent, they can say, oh, I'm always here to talk to, but like you said, nothing replaces your mom and your dad. It's some things that you probably don't want to offend somebody and say. So having that journal is just you and your journal. You did hit on an important topic that sometimes people go and start reading people's journal, which, can be a blessing and a curse. But, I just wanted to.
I think that goes into how the foster care system and just the people within the system and the things that we're always assessing danger, right? We're always assessing safety, and people going into your personal belongings to read, to kind of get to know you and understand what you're thinking. But that's how the foster care system robs people of those things that are expressive to them. And when I say it could open, I'm me being very transparent. Look, it can definitely open a whole nother world for you and things that you have going on, and it forces people to bottle things up.
So now you have another initiative that you have, I won't say just started because it's been going on for years at this point. Kenisha's Kithmas. Tell the viewers what Kenisha Kithmas is about.
So I launched a community, which is a nonprofit called Kenisha's Kith. Kenisha's Kithmas is my holiday initiative. And like I was saying, that there are so many nonprofits that are doing their thing. They're doing great things. They're touching the people that they come in contact with. But there's a pocket of people who those resources just honestly miss. So for me, my experience, and when I say my experience, I mean my experience as a person who went through it, a professional that goes through it, and I get to talk to you on the weekends. I get to talk to you on the weekends, and I get to see, real life experiences of what youth are living day by day, and resources still miss them. So I started an initiative to be very intentional, talking to youth, identifying youth, and asking them, what do you want? And then I, Kenisha, can be that leader to give them to grant that wish and to give them what they want. Because in my personal experience, and I don't like to impose my personal experience on everyone. However, when Christmas came around for me as a child, people would ask me, Kenisha, what do you want? And I'll tell them what I wanted, and they wouldn't get me nothing on the list. Or I wouldn't, or because I went in so young, right? I lived 13 years with other people outside of my parents. So some years I'll get everything that I wanted, depending on who I was with. Some years I'll live with people that wouldn't get me anything, but they'll buy their kids gifts. Sometimes the agencies will reach out and say, okay, we're having a holiday party, and then I'll go and they'll give me a gift. They'll give me a gift, and the gift would be $10, a $10 gift card. What am I going to do with that? And it didn't, as I got older and just being, more personal, I used to steal. And when Christmas time come, my friend group, like I said, culture meets system. We would do this thing where we like to say we get fly, we get raw, we put on our outfits, we get our hair done, we get the new Jordans that come out on Christmas. Well, I don't have those things now. I'm feeling left out. So it didn't deter me because the system didn't meet my needs, because my caregivers didn't meet my needs and my wants. It didn't deter me from bad behavior. So I created an initiative to deter bad behavior, to grant wishes, to grant wants, to pour into people and make them feel, like someone thought of me. Someone gave me exactly what I wanted. They didn't give me something and just tell me to be grateful about it. Because why do I have to be grateful for something just because it's like that savior complex, right? Like, why do I have to be grateful? Like, why can't I be happy? Why? So that's what Kenisha Kithmas is all about. It's about being very intentional and pouring into young people and, giving them the joy that they deserve, because that trickles down in the rest of your life and how your decision making, how you show up in relationships, how you show up for yourself. Why do you have to have bad experiences? And we have social media now, and everybody's on social media. So to be a youth, a child, a teenager in foster care, and you scrolling on social media and you see everybody with their family and they have on their pajamas, they opening gifts, they baking cookies, and you're just sitting in your home like, why I don't have this in my life? So I just wanted to, again, like, I will be very intentional with picking the organizations that I serve, and I'll always try to go around and, just be that seed of hope for the people that I come in contact with.
So Kenisha, it's Kenisha's Kith, and then it's Kenisha's Kithmas.
Right,
Kenisha's Kithmas. What are you doing with Kenisha's Kithmas in December?
So in December, last year I went to a group home and I served 12 teenagers that live in a group home. This year I'm going to be doing the same thing because foster care will always be near and dear to my heart. I do have siblings that didn't go into the foster care system. They live with relatives. And me and myself living with relatives, that there's still struggles in that. Even somebody's being raised by their grandmother. So I'm having a community event at Roots Bookstore in Miami, Florida on 66th Street and 15th Avenue. And I will be distributing Christmas gifts to everyone that comes while supplies last. But it's just about, being intentional, understanding that everybody goes through things and everybody deserves a little joy during the holidays, and just giving that joy back and being intentional. And I'm not walking around collecting toys, right? I'm being very intentional about what we're giving back, and things that will really give people the liberty to choose.
So how can people get connected to your initiative?
So to connect with me, you can follow me on Instagram at Kenisha's Kith. You can go on my website and subscribe to KenishaAnthony.com, and you can get right in contact with me.
Is there, so you said and that's one thing I like about your initiative that you're doing. You are not just taking anything. Like, you are, okay, this is what we need. We don't need this. Like, you're not afraid to do that, or say like, no, that's not really in my lane. Because I know sometimes that people can be like, okay, well, this is what I can contribute. If you can take it, you take it. And it goes back to what you were just saying about, why do you have to be grateful and not happy? So I love the fact that you are not just accepting whatever somebody feels can be beneficial. You are being intentional because you're actually out there working with youth, working with professionals as well, and you're identifying that need that's needed within the community. So you did leave something for the youth in the foster care system, or youth just in general, right? I want you to also leave our viewers with something for the professionals. If you can leave something with them, what would that be? Bonus question.
Professionals. What would I know that this work every single day is overbearing. We are, like they say, we are overworked, underpaid. But we still have to do the work, and we still have to show up as our best selves every day. And I think that in our own what happens in your personal life, I understand that it can trickle over into your professional life. But we have to be very mindful of our actions and what are the consequences for the people that we serve in their lives, right? I think that sometimes if you don't do that JR, or you don't do that case planning, you just, I'm just going to reset. The consequence for our families is that they lose their children. The consequence for us as professionals is what?
That's key.
So being very mindful and just being more intentional on how can we show up better. And thank you every day for showing up, because to be in this field, you have to choose to be in this field. You have to do the work to be in this field. So we're never negating. I'm never negating that. But now that we're here, we are the ones that are responsible for doing the work. So, let's do the work to the best of our abilities. And people do make mistakes. I'm not saying that people don't make mistakes, but, just really be mindful that the consequence for the people that we serve is the parents are going to lose their kids. The children are going to age out with no support system, no resources, whatever that may look like. In my book, I said vividly that everybody's level of resilience is different. What I was able to endure, you could have clocked out on level 3, because everybody level of resilience is different. Everybody can't get through the same struggles, and the result of the struggles that people face in life in general, right? It's suicide, it's drug addictions, it's all of the things that we go to work to face. And so let's just be, more intentional, connecting resources, always connect with philanthropists. There are people out here who want to help, and we just have to take the time to explore those avenues and show up and do the work.
Thank you. You left us with a mouthful. I mean, there was some sneak questions that I asked, but it felt needed, right? Because for you, you're probably the first person that I met who's actually lived foster care and then came and worked in the system as well. Yeah. So, and it's everybody hasn't met Kenisha as yet, right? And it's so hard to get you to be in multiple places at once. But the foster care system is not just in Florida. When I do like TikTok lives, there's people from all over the world who's in social work, who's in child welfare, because there are so much youth that have been impacted or who is living this system. So your testimony and where you are today, it's very needed for the community. It is a beacon of hope to a child who is in foster care, because like you said, social media is everywhere, and at this point, like, you carry what children are facing, right? But they're not in front of a camera speaking on that experience. You're a person who's lived it. You are a person who have thrived and is thriving past what the paper stated. Like when you look at the statistics and where you should be, you're not there. So your story is one that shouldn't be taken lightly, because there's not a lot of people who have accomplished what you have accomplished at your age, experiencing what you experienced. So I do want to say thank you, and from the bottom of my heart, for leaving this. This isn't just about professionals, but it's also about the youth, right? Because we're in this field for them. And it's a lot of things that you probably touched on in this 1 hour interview that they never sat down with their social worker and stated, like, or their case manager and stated that this is how I feel. This is how I feel about you as a social worker. And it's one of those things where, as a professional, we have to take a look at ourselves and ask ourselves, are we showing up as our best selves every day? Are we saying yes every day? Or are we just being a body trying to collect a check? So again, thank you for joining us. If there is anything that you feel like we didn't cover that you want to go ahead and leave the audience with, if there's any other initiatives that you're going to be working on that you want people to know about, you can go ahead and add it in as well.
Well, 2 things. As a youth, I would say, right, for youth, always ask. I know sometimes no can be very discouraging, and you probably will get tired of hearing no. But honestly, if something can't happen, it can't happen. But if it can happen, if you don't ask, it will never happen. And if you feel like something is not getting done, escalate it. Everybody have a supervisor. Escalate it to who you need to escalate it to get it done. An initiative that I have, and I'll begin, I launched it. It's called What's on the Menu. So working in this field, I found another gap, and it is children that experience foster care are less likely to have access to nutritional meals for a plethora of reasons. Look, I'd be like, I don't want nobody to knock me crazy. for a number of reasons, right? Mm-hmm. And children who live in group home care are even more or less likely to have access to nutritional meals. And youth are aging out of foster care without cooking skills, without a palate to understand that there are more foods in the world besides fast food, instant foods, which have long-term health issues, right? So how do we introduce youth to fresh vegetables? Again, coming to that realization that I need to become an adult. Like, I'm an adult and I need to learn these skills, because when I turn 18, I think that without food is the first thing that we need in the morning to ever be productive, to do any of the other millions of things, right? If you hungry, you can't think about money, you can't pass a test, you ain't going to school, you is so aggravated, you hangry if you're hungry. So I want to, and I will be pushing a mission forward to provide practical cooking skills to youth, also allowing them to be children and providing them with nutritional meals, because I'm still a child and I still need to, feel like somebody cares about me and give me a home cooked meal. So that is what I will be moving forward with, and you guys can follow that initiative on YouTube at Kenisha's Kitchen.
All righty, and thank you for sitting with us and joining me on this podcast. I appreciate you. I appreciate the work that you do, and it's only up from here. I know you're going to do a lot of things, a lot of amazing things, and you're just going to continue knocking down those barriers. I mean, that social worker in you is never going to die out. As far as you try to run from it, it's going to chase you down. But, all things work together for our good. So whatever's next for you, I know that children will always be centered, and
yes,
you'll always remain grounded in that.
I agree.
All righty. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your story. Your journey is a testament to resilience, faith, and service. And I know it's going to inspire so many others, especially those still finding their way after foster care. To our listeners, make sure to follow Kenisha and check out Kenisha's Kithman's details will be in the show notes. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it.